Welcome everyone. So today we'll see how to do a basic NPC character movement inside Unity 6 using NavMesh AI. So to start with, we'll do the basic game setup here. Let's create a basic plane. I will assign the material to it. So once the material has been assigned, we'll add the NavMesh surface. And if I keep everything default and nothing else is there, I can just simply bake it to get that blue color to show that it has been baked, and the object or nav mesh agents can move around it freely. Okay. So this is our basic plane setup, and we'll create a game object, maybe a cube, and name it as enemy NPC, like you can name it whatever you want. And then we'll add a basic nav agent to just show that it can move around this area freely. Okay. The next thing we need to do is create a basic script that we want to assign it to it. Okay, so the basic script that we want is the enemy move. So, oops, I did a mistake in spelling here, but that's okay. We can just delete it and create a new one. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead with it. So you just go to enemy, assign that enemy move script here, and we have that basic setup ready. It's not a good practice to have a different spelling, but this is just for a video, so we'll keep it that way for now. Okay, so let's just go and do the scripting. Okay, so in the script we have enemy move and we want to do the basic setup now. So let's just define the functions that I will be calling to implement the script. I'm starting with functions so it's easier to know like what we are trying to do at the end and what we have to call. So we'll define the first function as patrol action, where I'm doing the patrolling around the things. Then we have something called chase action that the game object would do when it is like player is within the sight or some other action that has to be performed, right? And then we have the attack function when it's like very close enough to do the attack, like fire a bullet or something. Right. Okay. So these are the three functions that I'd be calling whenever the player, based on the player position in this thing, in my current position or the game object's current position. Okay. So let's just create a basic enum to define the states that my object would be. So I'll define the states as this. Okay, so A state, patrol, chase, and attack. These are my the enum object that I've created, and based on this enum object, I'll have my current state or the object's current state, not my current state. Okay, so let's create a variable called current state, then assign the default state like this. If you know coding, these are like this is very basic stuff that I'm writing here. It's not that a big deal. But if you don't know coding, then this switch statement is basically to do the logical flow. So basically, if my current state is petrol, then I want the switch to check for that state, and then in the case for AI petrol should be like all the petrol methods. Okay, and then break from it. In case if it is like the case is AI state dot chase, I want to call the chase method and then break from the method or break from the switch statement. And in case my same way, if I have it like AI state is attack, I want to call the attack method and then do the break from this. Oops, I wanted to write simple break, but it wrong. Okay, nothing else got imported, so this looks fine. Okay. So this is my changes based on the state, and I can do this. And we can just log everything at here. But let's just use some visual stuff to do. So what we are going to do is we are going to manipulate the objects mesh renderer property, or basically objects color using mesh renderer property. So we are creating a mesh renderer variable here. We can keep this private, and in the start function we'll access it through the get component method. Okay, and in the mesh renderer object, what I'm going to do is in petrol method, I'm going to access its material, then color and set the color to yellow. So default petrol is my yellow color. Then we have blue for chase, and we'll have red for attack. Save the code and go back to Unity object. Yeah. Now, once the compilation is done, we can check the our enemy script. Enemy script has all these functions assigned. Let's just run and see what happens. Okay, so we can see a yellow colored enemy on my game object, and if I go ahead and change it to chase state, it is working as expected. As you can see, this one is working fine, right? It is in attack, blue, yellow. Okay, so this was like my basic setup that I wanted to do and the basic script to show the state changes that is possible here. Okay, now I want my enemy object to move around the certain areas while doing the patrol step, just like how an NPC character moves around some places. So for that, I'm going to create an empty object, call it patrol point, or we can call it any name you want, or I want. So we'll have the basic petrol point. Now let's just create some more. So we'll use Control D to create 4 different points. So oops, sorry, I'll move my first to this position, second to this, and towards the left, third one towards the left, and down here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I want my enemy object to move around those 4 points. Okay, so this is what we'll do. Then I will create a empty object just to hold all these points inside parent object. Okay, so this is my position. And let's just do one more thing, like just create another object, call it player, that we not use in the current script, but we'll use it like little later. So we'll move the player towards the left and then create some obstacle to just hide the player from direct view of enemy. Okay, and maybe we can scale it little. That's all I'm going to do. Okay, so let's just head back to our enemy script and add the petrol points that we have added. To move the player enemy object upon various points, we need the transform position of that point. So let's just create that public list of transform, and maybe we can name it as petrol points. Okay, so this will hold all petrol points that we created earlier. And what I would need is to access the list object sequentially, or like in a specific place we want to access that index of that petrol points of the list basically. So we'll create something called private integer current index. So this will hold the current index of my. Okay. Now what else we need is to define the NavMesh AI agent. So since we have already assigned the AI agent here, let's just define the Nav agent or NavMesh agent. Oops. Okay, so this is my Nav agent variable that I'm going to assign it here using get component method. We have already assigned the NavMesh agent to the enemy object, so this should not be null. Okay, so now what I want to do is move between different points. Okay, so before we do even that, let's just define some basic thing that we know. So if I want my object to go to different points between the in on the board or on my NavMesh board or NavMesh surface. What I want to do is I'll create a basic function like go to point and then have check like agent not equals to null. So this condition is basically saying that if null, then don't do anything. Okay. Then I want to do is I want to check if any path is assigned previously and is pending. Okay. So I want to do like if something is pending. So if I check here, agent has already a function will say like path is pending there. So if it is pending, it will return true. So I don't want anything to be pending. I want to be like not true. And we want to check what is the remaining distance. Like if remaining distance is like less than something, we can less than some epsilon, we can assign it epsilon. The epsilon is nothing but it's just a variable that I want to do, and we can do is either assign it as a variable or we can assign as some small value here. So we can assign 0.5 for now instead of like making it complicated for the video. Okay. Now what we want to do is whenever this happens, right? Whenever this happens, I want to set the destination to the next point that has to be called. Okay, so like agent dot destination, what we can do is agent dot destination. Oops, I am making so many mistakes in typing. Equals petrol points that we declared earlier, current index, whatever is the current index, it will start with 0, and then we'll define its position. So what I'm trying to say here is whenever the agent, we are setting the destination to the petrol points transform position. Okay, so whatever is the current index transform to its position, I am trying to set it. Okay, and next what we need to define is increment the current index object. Okay, so if I do this, or like if I assign this value, okay, so what I want to do is I want if I assign it for just incrementing index, okay, just like current index plus one, that won't help because it will eventually reach the end of the line. It will eventually reach the end and then it will be like more. So what we'll do is we'll make it like to use the remainder of that function. So to use the remainder, we'll use the uh, this function. Okay, and then we'll assign whatever is the maximum length of my object. So dot length. Oops, should be steps. Okay, so I guess petrol points is not taking the length function. Let's just see what happened. So if we replace petrol points, I make it dot. It shows count function. Okay, let me see. Okay, so we defined it as a list, right? Instead of an array, so it should be like count instead of like. Okay, so anyways, this will work. Okay, so now I have go to point, which will like if everything is pending, I can set this thing, set the agent destination to the one of my transform point position, and then everything should work fine, right? But here is the point. If I do this, this current index will like change every time, even before this can happen, right? I'll set the destination, I'll come out, and it will not function as a properly. So we need to put this condition inside my petrol method. Like we have to call this inside petrol method so that it's like it looks better. It doesn't call that go to function every time. And once it calls, it like sets the position, then it should be like moving around it currently, or it should be moving or completing the path before it like it should go to the next position. Okay, so now it would like if agent is null, agent path is pending, remaining distance, remaining actual should go to all those points. Okay, and then it should increase the next position. It will increase the next position. It will come here, but it will call the petrol, but there will be path pending, so I won't go to point, so it will not change any of these values, and I'll just keep running until or unless my remaining distance is less than 0.5 and path pending is 0. Then once I call it, it will increase it. So the code is like pretty simple. Let me know if my skills of making you understand is clear or not. Like I know in my head I may not be able to explain it clearly. Okay, so anyways, like we'll save it and see what happens here. Okay, so in my scene, I have the enemy object, I have petrol points, which is empty. So I'll just increase it to 4 since we created 4 of these points. Let's just assign them one after another. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 of these points 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And since everything is assigned, let's see if it works as expected. Mhm. This moves quite fast and good. So as you can see, my enemy object or NPC character will move around points until or unless like someone tries to stop it, or I have changed to some other state and then there is an attack. Okay, so let's just stop it and see how to implement the chase and the attack function. Chase basically means we have to follow the player around, right? Like we whatever the position of the player, we have to follow it around. So for the player object, I have just mesh render and box collider. Maybe I can add a rigid body, because if say I want to implement something like on-site or raycast object, I need the rigid body as well. Maybe we need gravity or we don't need gravity. Both are like okay cases. Okay. So in moving to the script side, what we are going to need is just declare some basic player transform, or like access the transform method of the player. So I'll create a public transform variable and call it player transform. This will help me get the position of the player. Okay. And in the chase method, what I'm going to write is, since I already have checked my agent is not null, I can set it also, set destination to player transform dot position. Okay. In my chase method, I'm just going to put it like agent dot set destination player transform dot position. And in case of my attack position, say I was going to attack through a sword or something. So what I would do is I'll not move. I'll just stop movement, and maybe we can. Okay. Sorry. What I want to do is I want to look at the object, right? Like I want to look at the player object and say, okay, now I'll shoot or like do a sword attack. So what we'll need is we'll have to take the play enemy objects transform, then add the look at method towards the player transform. Okay, so this way my enemy will turn towards the player, and then maybe we can add a function called shoot a similar function. Okay, we haven't implemented a shoot function, so it's like throwing a tantrum here. Let's just implement a basic shoot trend function. Okay, so this will be fine. I'll just log something like debug.log shoot to show that my player is attacking me or something on the player. So the basic script is here. Now we'll save it and see. So you'll ask me like how it will change the current state. So current state is still not defined. We are not still not doing anything to change the current state. We are just doing the basic setup to have all the functions ready. So let's just see how this all will work. So once compilation is done, no error, what we'll do is run the object. Okay, so it's still in the default mode, it's not doing anything. Now if I go to enemy, change the default from petrol to say chase. Oh, it says player transform if enemy move has not been assigned. So just stop it. Enemy, I have created a player transform, did not assign the player object. Now let's see what happens. Again, it's already doing the basic changes. If I make it chase, it's just going and tagging the player, right? Okay, let's just do one thing. Make it go back to petrol. It is coming back and starting position and doing. Now if I change it to attack, it's just looking towards the player, not going to it. Okay, so if there was a shoot function, it's calling the shoot function again. So all the three objects are working as expected. We just need to find how to implement the action autonomously instead of me going changing the positions manually here, right? So let's just see in the script how will we do that. Script, if I go and what we want to do is change the current state based on the distance from the player transform, right? So for that we would need something like a distance or get distance function, which will basically return my player transform dot position difference from my current transform dot position, this whole thing into square magnitude. Okay, so to understand how this thing works, let's head to this one. Okay, so my player position, which says -5 and 5 almost, and my enemy position, which says 5 and -5. Basically, both of them are like 10 units apart, 10 here and 10 here, right? So if that's the case, my total distance between them will be differences and 10 cross 10, so it will be 100 plus 100 square root, it will be like 100 root 2. So if I don't calculate the root 2, it will be like 100 only. Okay, but if it is going to be sorry, it will be like root 200, or if I don't do calculation, it will be like uh, yeah, so the difference between them will be like 100 plus 100, like that. Okay, so if I just do square magnitude calculation, I don't have to actually do the square root function, which will save me some CPUs, and if it is a big game, it will save me the lag and everything, right? So okay, now just write the main get current state function that we are working on. So get current state. So how we are going to do calculation for that? Take a float. Mind you, this function will be very large if the distance between player and target is very huge. Okay, so we have to do additional logic so that we don't do that additional calculation. If required, we have to do some additional scripts to avoid any floating issues or like overflow issues. So distance, get distance, and now I'm going to be like if the distance is less than 100, like it's within 5 comma 5, greater than 6 comma 6 to some 10 comma 10 or 9 comma 9, it should be like it's greater than 100. It should be in petrol state. So currently state should be in petrol. Okay, same thing if distance is less than 100 and distance is greater than 36, I want the default state change to chase. And say if it is less than 36, I want to just look at it and like I am going to kill you. Okay, so we'll write it like less than 36. It will be basically 3 cross 3. Minus 3 to 3, 3 to 3, minus 3. Okay, so this much code is fine. Let's just call this get current method here. So this will take my current object. Okay, now let's just see what happens. Okay, now if I run this script again, okay, now you see what happened. I'll just try to do it again. Okay, I'll move my player to yellow position, then it is just going in attack mode. Let's stop and run it again. So if I run it now, see, default is patrol state. Starts with yellow, blue, then it just quickly changes to red and then attack and it starts shooting. Okay. This is the whole thing says like it is working as expected and everything is working fine except the fact that it's even if it is not able to see the player clearly, just based on distance it's trying to attack the player. So to implement something which will like see the player and it will be based on the actual player object or player being visible instead of like just distance, we have to implement it some raycasting to it. So for that what we can do is we can have rigid body attached to player that we have already done. What we can do more is in this enemy object, let's just add few more things. Okay, like in the enemy object, let's just enemy object is fine. And in the obstacle, let's just add few more things. Like maybe we can make our obstacle little bigger. Okay, so that it's not visible easily. And then what we can do is we can start implementing the raycast mode. Okay, let's just do it. Back to script. Okay, to implement raycast function, first let's just define something. What do we mean by or what function that we need to call? So we'll just create a private pool player in range or player inside, like whatever we can name it, like whatever we want. So player in range or player inside. Now what we need is we need a distance or basically direction to the player object from our current this thing object. So we'll just take a vector 3 because we have a vector 3 direction, and then we will take the direction to player, which is nothing but player transform dot position minus transform dot position and whole thing. Normal. So this is basically normalized direction to the player object that we are taking. Okay. Now we need to implement something called physics raycast. Okay. So how to implement the physics raycast? If you just Google it, it will show like we can do physics dot raycast method, and then we are going to need the transform dot position. So basically my current position that we want to do the raycast from, and mind you, like if it's a larger or like enemy shooter game, then this transform position, instead of transform position, we should take some empty object at player's eyes, near the player eye, and then from there use it so that it avoids hitting the ground if it is like if the transform position is exactly at the center of the object and we want to array to be from the top of the player's head or something. Okay, that we want to do. Okay, then what we need is second position is like the direction that I want to array to go through. So it will be the direction to the player object. Then I want to check if there has been any hit or not. So I'll just take a raycast hit method. Okay, and then finally what I need is the detect range that I want my object to be detected. So I'll take detect range that we can define. No. Okay, so what we should define it public so that I can change its value if it is less than something. Okay, let's just define it as something called 100. Like I want to see around 100 so that I can check whether the player is within that 100 range, because I have the player or my chase function within that range right now. If I come here, what I want to check, if there is a hit or the ray hits some object, I want to check whether hit the transform is equals to player transform. Okay. So if I have hit the object and its transform is equals to player transform, then I can say, okay, I have seen the player or player is in range. So I'll return the information. Otherwise, we are just going to say return false. So player is not in range. And if player is in range, what I'm going to do is add a method here, player in range in my main function. So only do this if player is in range. Okay, like do patrolling, go from patrol to chase only if player is in range, and go from chase to attack or patrol to attack only if player is in range. Okay, let's just save this and then we can head back and see what happens in the actual object. Okay, now let's just run this and see what happens to our player and enemy. So you can see this change is not happening automatically because even though my player is in range, right? It was coming in range around this area. It's not actually attacking it. Now let's move the player somewhat near. Let's see what happens. Okay. Now it was in range because it was from this side and it got attacked. Let's just stop it. And let's just add one thing. Okay, let's just add some debug rays so that we can see actually if the rays, how the rays are coming out and we can see them. Okay, let's just head back to the main object, come to this particular function, maybe some debug dot draw array. We will do the again the same thing. Transform dot position. I want the ray from my current player towards the normalized distance that we have calculated, direction to player, and into the detect range. So I don't even really want to draw. I want to draw the only the range or the maximum range that is there, and maybe we can give a color. We can give any color like color not blue, green. Okay. And let's see what happens now. If I run the object, okay, go to the scene menu. You see that the player is sending message to the enemy is sending a read to the player, but since the hit transform is hitting only the obstacle, it is not doing anything. Right? It's not changing, even though it is inside. Now let's do this. Now it is like full attack mode. Damn. Okay, now it's chasing, it's chasing, it's chasing. It will keep attacking, right? Okay. So now let's just change our shoot method to maybe shoot some bullet. So for that, let's just head back to our main script. Okay, so let's just go to our shoot method and implement the basic shoot function. So for shoot, I want to instantiate some bullet for now. So let's just give instantiate function. We will need a prefab object that I haven't defined yet. So maybe I'll just name it as bullet prefab. It will be giving some error, but that's fine. And then I'll shoot it from my transform position. Actually, it should be like the actual bullet should be shown from the gun or something, so it should be gun transform, but for now I'm just taking transform position, and then I want it to take my current rotation also, so transform rotation. So this will instantiate my bullet. If I go back to this place, I want to assign a game object here. Okay, and it will call it bullet prefab. So my bullet prefab is it will instantiate. But look, if you look at here, then the shoot method will be called indefinitely, like it will not stop. So we should have some way to like stop the bullets from coming out. So let's just add some more conditions to it, like it should not fire continuously. So if I have to say like if time is greater than my shoot time. Okay, so if I define something called the shoot time, which will be like some X value, if it has passed, then only shoot the next bullet. Don't shoot like continuously one go. And shoot time, every time we have to increase it so that it's not like it's not a constant like after something is reached and it is not done. So maybe we have to define something called a fire rate. This fire rate will determine how much bullets will be shot at one time. So let's just define these two again at the top. We'll define them like private float shoot time and public float fire rate. Okay, so public float fire rate initially default to 2. This should be fine with the script. Now it's giving some error. What is there? Doesn't exist. Did I define? Now it should exist, right? Okay. Now let's just head back to our game. And like in some previous thing, I had just defined a basic prefab here. So this bullet, I'll assign it as a basic bullet prefab object. Okay. In the bullet prefab, if you see there is nothing, there is just basic bullet script which like fires in front of it like at a speed of 10, nothing fancy here. It just moves forward in the direction. Okay. So if I run the script now, let's just see what happens. Okay. So it will keep on patrolling as it was doing. Now if I move the player, okay, now it is firing bullet. Okay, it has like thrown it away, and once this player object is gone, it has gone back to doing the patrol thing, right? Okay, so this looks good as implemented. So please do let me know what do you think of it. It's my second time only explaining the code here, so do let me know like how I can improve on this. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.